So, dear students, welcome to our biology second paper online class. Here, I am D. Shahabuddin, lecturer, Department of Biology, Milestone College. Today, we learn biology second paper, Chapter-9, named Continuation of Human Life. So, dear students, you are watching a figure. Here, the three germ layers in human body: ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm. Today, we know about the fate of germ layers. So, first, today's topics that I will discuss: number one, fate of three germ layers; number two, process of in vitro fertilization, that means IVF; and number three, sexually transmitted disease, that means STD, which is called STI, that means sexually transmitted infection. What we will learn after this class, that means the learning objectives or the learning output from today's class. Number one, we should be able to learn about the fate of three germ layers. We should be able to learn about the process of in vitro fertilization, that means IVF, and we learn about the different types of sexually transmitted disease such as syphilis, gonorrhea, and AIDS. The first topics is the germ layer of human body. Fate of the germ layers almost same in all chordates with few differences in different classes. The following table describe the fate of germ layers of human body. First of all, ectoderm, which is indicate the outer layer of embryo; endoderm, which is the inner layer and which is form lines embryonic digestive tract; and third one, mesoderm, partly fills the space between the endoderm and ectoderm. And I mentioned this, mesoderm is the special characters for the triploblastic animals, and this layer is absent in diploblastic animal. So let's know ectoderm, the fate of ectoderm. It consists epidermis of skin and its derivatives including sweat glands, hair follicles, etc. Epithelial lining of mouth and rectum, sense receptors in epidermis, cornea and lens of eye, nervous system, adrenal, medulla, tooth enamel, which is the strongest part of our body, epithelium or pineal and pituitary glands. Here, the fate of mesoderm, notochord, which is the special characters for chordate animals, skeletal system, muscular layer of stomach, intestine, excretory system, circulatory and lymphatic systems, reproductive system, dermis of skin, lining of the body cavity, adrenal cortex. And last one, the fate of endoderm. Endoderm means the inner part of the three germ layers: epithelial lining of digestive tract, epithelial lining of respiratory system, and liver, pancreas, thymus, thyroid, and parathyroid glands. So the students, this is so much important for us. It can appears to our exam as the question number of C or D. That means 3 or 4 marks. The next topics, before we go the next topics, here the some image which is the fate of three germ layers. Here ectoderm, endoderm, mesoderm. Ectoderm consists or converted into epidermis, hair, nails, eye, lens, nervous system, nasal, oral mucus, etc. Here, the another part of our body, which is the fate of three germ layers and origins some mammalian tissues of organs. Next one, here you are watching a image. This is IVF or ICSI. Dear students, the full meaning of IVF is in vitro fertilization, and the ICSI is intracytoplasmic injection. So the process in vitro fertilization, that means this is one kinds of artificial conceivedness. Here the definition of IVF. IVF is a process involves monitoring a woman's ovulatory process, removing ovum from the woman's ovaries and lifting sperm in a fluid medium in a laboratory is called in vitro fertilization, and the baby is also called test tube baby. Here's some information about IVF. The first successful birth of a test tube baby named Louis Brown in 1978 at Oldham General Hospital, London. Mr. Robert G. Edwards and Mr. Patrick Steptoe was the director in the project. They achieved Nobel Prize in 2010 for the achievement of IVF. In Bangladesh, the first test tube baby was born in 2001. Dear students, here are the advantages of IVF or why the procedure is performed. Here are some causes for procedure. Number one, advanced age of the woman, damaged or blocked fallopian tubes, endometriosis, male factor infertility, including decreased sperm count and blockage, unexplained infertility. Here are the stages of or technique of or the steps of IVF. Number one, stimulation. Number two, egg retrieval. Number three, insemination and fertilization. Number four, embryo culture. And number five, embryo transfer. But dear students, here the image or the stages of IVF. Now I describe this. First of all, the stages: stimulation. Medicines commonly called fertility drugs are given to women to boost her egg production. Number two, egg retrieval. A minor surgery called follicular aspiration is done to remove the eggs from the woman's body. In rare cases, a pelvic laparoscopy may be needed to remove the eggs. Next, if a woman does not or cannot produce any eggs, donated eggs may be used. Stage number three, stage insemination and fertilization. The woman's sperm is placed together with the best quality eggs and stored in an environmentally controlled chamber. The mixing of the sperm and egg is called insemination. Dear students, I repeat this. The mixing of sperm and egg is called insemination. The sperm usually enters an egg a few hours after insemination. Number four, embryo culture. When the fertilized egg divides, it becomes an embryo. Laboratory staff will regularly check the embryo to make sure it growing properly. Within about 5 days, a normal embryo has several cells that are actively dividing. And the last one, here, embryo transfer. The embryo are placed into a woman's womb 3 to 5 days after egg retrieval and fertilization. The doctor inserts a thin tube, which is called catheter, containing the embryos into the woman's vagina. Through the cervix and up into the womb. If an embryo sticks to in the lining of the womb and grows, pregnancy results. More than one embryo may be placed into the embryo at the same time, which can lead to twins or triplets or more. Unused embryo may be frozen and implanted or donated at the later date. So, dear students, this is all for the stages of IVF. Here are some disadvantages of IVF. What are them? Number one, a clear disadvantage with IVF is that success is not guaranteed. Scientists have discovered that babies born through IVF treatment are a greater risk of a rare combination of birth defects. A woman taking fertility medicine may have bloating, abdominal pain, mood swings, headaches, and other side effects. Overall, IVF is a very costly process. It can get very controversial for people who are pro-life and could lead to outrage. So, dear students, this is all for the process of IVF. It as the fate of three germ layers, it will appear or exam in higher ability based question, or the knowledge based question, or the comprehension based question. So you will learn these topics carefully. So the next topics for today: sexually transmitted disease, that means STD, which is called STI, that means sexually transmitted infections. Sexually transmitted disease or venereal disease are illness that have a significant probability of transmission between humans by means of human sexual behavior, including vaginal intercourse, oral sex, and anal sex, etc. Some STD can also be transmitted via use of IV drug needles after its use by an infected person, as well as through childbirth or breastfeeding. So, dear students, first disease is syphilis, which is caused by a bacteria Treponema pallidum. Syphilis is a sexually transmitted disease. It is the top list sexual disease of the world. The term syphilis was first applied by the Italian physician and poet Girolamo after the name of the hero Syphilis in his epic noted poem written in Latin. Later it outbreaks to the Europe during World War II. The infection of this disease spread all over the world. Here are some symptoms of syphilis and also complication of syphilis. At first it appears as a red dome and is where the bacteria initially multiply. It rapidly erodes to become a painless ulcer called canker. Dear student, noted this. What is canker? The patient of syphilis disease rapidly erodes to become a painless ulcer. It's called canker. A rash can develop in body during this stage. Round or red brown spots appear on the chest, arms and legs. There are also flu-like symptoms such as headache, fatigue and mild fever, etc. The process of diagnosis of syphilis. Syphilis can diagnosis by different tests. The test included TPHA test, that means treponema pallidum particle agglutination test, FTA-ABS test, that means fluorescent treponemal antibody absorption test, etc. Here the treatment of syphilis. Penicillin is a very effective treatment for all stages of syphilis, but it will at the early stage of syphilis. So early in the infection is needed. Number 2, the disease gonorrhea. Gonorrhea is a very common sexually infections disease. There are 200 million reported cases of gonorrhea in the worldwide each year, but no report of death. This disease creates severe complexity in sexually active teenagers, have one of the highest rates of reported infections. The gonorrhea disease is another bacterial disease which is caused by Neisseria gonorrhea. Neisseria gonorrhea. Symptoms and complexity of STD. There are different types of symptoms shown in the different bodies, such as in men, greenish yellow or whitish discharge in reproductive organ, burning when urinating, burning in the throat, swollen glands in the throat. In women, lower abdominal of or pelvic pain, burning when urinating, bleeding between periods. Here the process of diagnosis of gonorrhea. Testing for gonorrhea is done by swabbing the infected site of identifying and bacteria in the laboratory. Here the process of treatment. Different types of antibiotics including penicillin, cefixime and ceftriaxone are effective on gonorrhea. Here are the last topics for today. Dear students, you are watching the most popular disease in the world is AIDS. The full meanings of AIDS is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Actually, AIDS is not a special type of disease. It is defined as the HIV post-infection condition. Total immunity of the body damaged by the infection of HIV. So a patient died easily by any kinds of infections disease. In 1983, French scientist Dr. Louis Montagnier and American scientist Dr. Robert Gallo separately described the virus of AIDS. Montagnier gave the name of this virus but Gallo proposed the name for this virus as human T-cell lymphocytic virus. So here are some causes. The causes of AIDS is HIV virus. HIV is from 3 words: human immunodeficiency virus. The process of transmission of AIDS through sexual contact, through blood via blood transfusion, from mother to child, using same blade in salon, etc. The different types of symptoms which are found in the different stages of AIDS. The early HIV symptoms include fever, headache, and tiredness, enlarged lymph nodes in the different parts of the body, decreased body weight, pneumonia, brain infection. Finally, patient lost his or her all immunity and died out. At the process of diagnosis of AIDS, HIV infection is commonly diagnosed by blood test. There are 3 main types of tests are commonly used. Number 1, HIV antibody test. Number 2, RNA test. And number 3, a combination test that detects both antibodies and a piece of the virus called the P24 protein. Here the process of treatment of AIDS. There is no cure for AIDS at this time, but treatments are available to manage symptoms. Nowadays, 2 groups of medicines are used for treating AIDS: nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors and another one is protease inhibitors. Dear students, I repeat this. Number 1, nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors and protease inhibitors. Now we will watch some images of different types of sexually transmitted disease. Here some image of the congenital syphilis. Here some image of gonorrhea, and here the figure of HIV virus. And last, what's are the prevention of this disease? Dear students, we can prevent this easily by the safe sexual contact, and despite significant efforts, there is no effective vaccine. The only way to prevent infectious disease, we can abstain from the sex, obviously has limited appeal, but it absolutely protects against HIV or gonorrhea or syphilis. Do not share needles or inject with others. If you have engaged in a risky behaviors, get tested to see if you have HIV or gonorrhea or syphilis. Now, here the sample questions from these topics, from today's topics. Number 1, some knowledge-based question. Here, germ layer, IVF, syphilis, gonorrhea, etc. Here the some sample of comprehension-based question. What does mean by IVF? What are the disadvantages of IVF? What does it mean by AIDS, etc. And many more questions can appear in our exam from these topics. And the sample question of application and higher ability based question. Describe the fate of 3 germ layers. Dear students, this is the most important question from this topics. Describe the fate of 3 germ layers. Describe the process of method of IVF, or describe the process of IVF method. So dear students, I hope you and all are understand about the class. If you faces any kinds of problems, you will contact your class teacher or subject teacher. He or she will can solve your all types of problems. So dear students, no more today. Thanks to all.